A fiend and an arcanist. Working together. Nightmares will not deter me, demon fawn. Stay your sermons, I won't be swayed.
Hey guys, welcome back. We are playing Yone today. He's a late game scaling hyper carry, super fun to play, but also difficult to master. So the hard part about Yone is most of the time his early game, especially if you're in a bad matchup like we are right now. Vex is known as a Yone counter because she's very good against champions with a lot of dashes. So what you want to do when you're in a bad matchup is that you just focus on last hitting. The thing is, Yone early game is supposed to be weak, but because of lethal tempo you can actually look for fights. So against the Vex, what you want to do guys, so every single time her passive bar, the red bar, is fully stacked, her next ability is going to fear. And that's what's really annoying. So what you want to do is that you try to bait it out, and then you look for a fight. Every single time you dash, then she's going to get an empowered auto attack against you, but that doesn't really matter. The only thing you care about is that fear. So when she wastes it like this, then you can go for a fight. And because of lethal tempo, then your early game is of course really strong, and that will allow you to get some kills. But be careful dashing. When you play against the Vex, then you really want to be careful not spamming that Q dash, because if you do so, then she's going to get that empowered auto attack off very often, and that is really going to add up damage wise. So your W, of course, you don't want to spam your W, so the way you want to use it in the laning phase is that when they try to poke you, then you time that W so it's going to last hit minions, and you also get to deny some of the damage. And the E, of course you know, but do keep in mind that the E guys, the mark will be split in half when the target is within kill range. But sometimes they will intentionally try to bait it out, and then they have some kind of healing or shielding, because even though that mark is cut in half and then they heal or something afterwards, they will not get executed. But you should always know that when that mark is cut in half, then if you E out instantly, they will get executed. So just try to last it with a Q, try to get it stacked up, and then you try to combine it with a E into a Q knockup. In this matchup, try to bait out that passive bar first. If you can do that, then you have free engage, because Vex does not have any disengage without their passive. It is an immobile champion. Her ultimate is only good for engaging, she cannot escape. You'll see, she wasted like this, and then we can look for engage. That's what you want to do all the time guys. You don't really care about that empowered auto attack she gets, because if you all in Vex and she doesn't have the passive up, then she's gonna lose it, because she does not have extended damage like we do. She doesn't have DPS, she has a lot of burst damage, and then she's also good at poking, but she is not able to deal with champions who can engage straight on top of her and then just out DPS her. But because of the way, because of how your Q and W works, they scale with attack speed, so it means that the cooldown as well as the cast time gets lowered with more attack speed up to a cap. So that's why lethal tempo and attack speed from items is really good on Yone. Lethal tempo makes him really strong in the early game, but if you want a strong late game, then you can also go for the Conqueror. That is going to make your early game weaker, but late game a lot stronger. So his big power spike is when you get the shield bow, you have your boots, and then you have the Infinity Edge or also the Mortal Reminder. That's like a cheap power spike, but gives you less damage compared to Infinity Edge, but it's cheaper, so you get like your power spike a lot earlier. That's something you can do if you know that you definitely need the anti-healing. Like if they have a lot of healing and you're going to buy it anyways, then you might as well get it after the shield bow. Make sure that you have some good vision, and then when you have your ultimate up, really good engaging ability, also good for gap closing. Like you don't need to hit it all the time. If you can use it for gap closing and then finish off the target, then that's also fine. Just remember that your E makes you unstoppable on the way back, like when you recast it. So if you play against someone like a Zoe or a Lilia, you can use that E to cancel out Zoe's bubble and also Lilia's ultimate. The thing is, it's pretty easy to dodge your ultimate because it has a pretty long cast time. So if they have like tier 2 boots or dashes, then they can easily dodge it. So that's why if you want to get a guaranteed ultimate off, then you combine it with that third Q dash into the ultimate. Because if they first get hit by that third Q, like the Q dash knock up, and then you follow it up with the ultimate, there's no way to dodge it. They cannot flash away because they'll get chain CC'd, so they will end up dying. But Yone starts becoming more fun as you get the items. He's really fun as soon as you get the shield blow and Infinity Edge power spike, and then even more OP when you get that new Death Dance, which Riot kind of reworked. That's also pretty OP because it works against magic damage as well now. It used to do that in the start, then they removed it, and then it's back again. But the thing is that against most mid lane matchups, you're mostly playing to outscale, or you're playing to get out of the lane. So some of the matchups were pretty difficult in the lane. As soon as you get to the side lane, when the towers go down, then they should become playable. You should be able to look for kills in the side lanes because it is an extended lane. So those annoying mages in the mid lane, as soon as you get to the side lanes, then it's a lot harder for them to escape. Do remember to weave in auto attacks as well when you trade with a Q. Don't just use your Q, make sure that you auto attack a lot. Because you have some mixed damage on your passive, like your auto attacks deal mixed damage, physical damage as well as magic damage, so do abuse that, because people will take armor against you. So that magic damage is pretty much true damage at that point early on in the game against squishy targets. He does have a lot of mixed damage in his kit, so he's pretty difficult to counter with just armor items. You can also look for roams, especially when you have your ultimate up, because it also works as CC. Engage with that E into the ultimate, and if you hit multiple people, then of course that is going to end up in a kill most of the time. But you can stack that lethal tempo up really fast, and when that happens, then it is really difficult for people to deal with you in the early game. Like, he is supposed to be weak early on, but with lethal tempo he's really strong in the early game. Of course you will have a little bit weaker late game, like his late game is still strong, but when you have lethal tempo it is not a strong late game compared to Conqueror. You can also like bait out a fear, you know, when you E in and then you just go back for a short time and then go back in, because sometimes you'll be able to bait out that fear. But do remember that you get some really nice bonus movement speed in that E, so you can kite people as well. And as I said, it does make you unstoppable. But never ever try to use it to escape with. You can use it to stall or to dodge abilities, but it is not an ability that you use to like try to escape with, because it will always bring you back to a main body, so people can just wait, they don't have to chase you. And you can also use that E to like jump over short walls, so like somebody trying to escape, then you can also follow them around. The one thing it does not work against is suppression abilities. Then you have to time it like when they're casting it, but like if it's going on, then you're not able to E out. So for example, if you're in a Camille ultimate with that E active, then she's just going to extend the duration of your E until her ultimate expires, and then you'll be dragged back to your main body. So be careful not wasting it like that, and do keep in mind how it works and how it interacts with the different CCing abilities. You're honestly just playing to get out of the lane. You want to get into the side lane as fast as possible, because that is why you can really start snowballing. If you play against the mage mid lane, they're really gonna struggle in the side lane, because it is an extended lane, so you can often force fights without them being able to escape. You can see this champion becomes really oppressive if you give him a lead early on, especially when you get to the point where he has the shield bow finished. And then even more difficult to deal with when the Infinity Edge is ready. So the reason I did not go in here is that if she feared me, if I eat in, then I would have died, but I ended up dying anyway, so I don't think there was a way for me to escape because I did not have my summoners up. So we are pretty close to the first power spike, and that is going to be the shield bow. They did nerf it a while ago, but it's still the best mythic item on Yone. The other mythic items, like you can use the Gale Force, but it is not the best. Dragon Slayer gives you a lot of attack speed. It's a bit overkill at this point because you already have all the attack speed you need from the lethal tempo and your items, so it's going to be a bit overkill. So this mythic item really makes up for his weak early game, along with lethal tempo. You get a lot of sustain, you also get a shield, which is really useful, especially into those bad matchups. Like he really struggles against assassins and of course champions like the Vex as well, who's good against Yone. So the extra defensive stats from the shield bow, the shield, sustain, and of course also the HP that you're getting, it's just the best compared to the two other options. So this is something you honestly want to be building every single game until Riot makes bigger changes. Because sustain in the laning phase is just OP. Because even if you get poked down, they shove in a wave and then you just full HP suddenly, and that's really going to be so annoying for the enemy mid laner, especially if they are a mage, because they will not have that kind of sustain. But now we have enough gold for the shield bow. That's a big power spike, and then the next item really depends on your objective and the enemy team composition. If they have a lot of healing and you think that you're going to get the the Mortal Reminder, not the Morelnomicon, but Mortal Reminder, then you can just build that straight up because that gives you a faster power spike because it's cheaper. But if you want the biggest power spike, then of course it has to be the Infinity Edge. We got the BF sword right here. That's a big spike. We have a lot of attack speed, so AD is of course also needed. We have a 2.5x multiplier on the passive for the crit chance, and then you never have to worry about getting more than 100% crit chance because any excess crit will be turned into bonus AD. So when you snowball like this, then of course you can just look for engage at any point. Just try to make sure that you have either your E or your ultimate up. You don't always have to use your ultimate in your E animation because it's really good just for engaging alone. Because sometimes you just want to stay in the fight, and if you engage by using your E first and they somehow survive, then you're going to be dragged back. So that's why if you just engage with your ultimate alone, then you can stay in the fight, you don't have to worry about getting pulled back by your E. This champion is a lot easier to play compared to Yasuo, but he still has some difficult mechanics, and his early game can also be pretty rough if you're playing against a good mid laner, because his early game is pretty weak. Like, he's strong if they allow you to stack their lethal tempo, but good players will not do that. Like, they're not gonna let you stack their lethal tempo. They're gonna constantly poke you outside of your auto attack range, so his early game will be pretty rough when you start playing against pretty good players. So that's the hard part about him. And then late game can also be pretty difficult when the team fights start, because you have to be really patient engaging with the ultimate. You want to play him like an assassin, where you find the squishy targets, preferably the mid laner or the AD carry, whoever is fed. You want to assassinate them, and then you want to get back to safety with your E. So I kind of want to assassinate people, but at the same time you also want to keep in mind what kind of CCing abilities they have, because if they chain CC you before you get to recast your E, then you're most likely dead, because this champion is so squishy. You want to be split pushing a lot in the mid game. That is how you get these high CS numbers, guys. A lot of people have asked me how I get really high CS numbers. This is how. As soon as the tower goes down in the mid lane, you just go to the side lane. It will be risky some points because your teammates just keep getting caught over and over. You can't really do much about it unless you have teleport up. That is also something that you can use in Yone. But if you think they will get caught, try to predict it and then try to be there before the fight starts. But that doesn't mean that you want to be grouped up all the time. You want to spend as much time in the side lane as possible, because that is how you really get a lead for yourself. This is also something you can do without killing the jungle camps. You can just keep them alive, so you can constantly stack up their Q, and then when somebody appears you can just engage, and there is no way for them to escape. You can see this damage is absolutely insane. This is the big power spike. When you're at this point, then you can one-shot most squishes in the game. Even the assassin matchups will become skill matchups. The only thing you have to worry about is not getting one-shot. Yone is pretty squishy, so that's why after you have the Infinity Edge, most of the time you get Guardian Angel or you get the Death Stance. Because the new Death Stance is so OP, great synergy with Yone, also gives you a lot of AD, guys, so you get survivability as well as damage in one item. And your ultimate, of course, is skill shot. As you can see, it can be countered by things like the Sonya's Hourglass. So if people have it, do keep that in mind and try to play around it. But he has really high outplay potential. But something like a Tryndamere can be very difficult to deal with because of his ultimate, so it doesn't really matter that you out DPS him. Because his ultimate is gonna keep him alive no matter what. So you have to be really good at kiting, and that's where your E comes in. That is the ability that you want to use to kite those champions who can fight you 1 versus 1. Next item is going to be the Death Stance. And we really want to go to the side lane, but the thing is Jin did not want to go mid this game for some reason. I don't know why. Because mid lane is a lot safer for the AD carries while you go to the side lane. Because then you get some farm and XP for yourself. You do not want to be grouped most of the time, because then you will not be able to farm as well, and then you also won't get that big lead. Because let's say even if I struggled, like if I lost mid lane against the Vex this game here, as long as I managed to farm up well and got at least the shield bow, then once I meet her in the side lane, then I might still be able to kill her. Because Yone is a lot stronger in extended fights, and they're a lot easier to force in the side lane, because it is an extended lane, so it's a lot harder for people to escape. Now we're doing what we should be doing, spending as much time as possible in the side lanes. And then using that ultimate as a gap closer. If you have more than enough damage, you don't need to use that ultimate for damage. You can just use it to chain CC people or as a gap closer, so you make sure that you get within range. But you can see Yone is really squishy, so that's why it's important that you get something defensive. When you have the damage items, then you also get something defensive so you can survive that initial engage. So now we have the Death Stance, and this item is actually pretty OP on him, since they buffed it. It works against physical and magic damage. It does not work It does not work against true damage, but that doesn't really matter. What matters is that you get all that HP back. So it's a big counter item to assassins. Because instead of taking the damage immediately, it makes you take the damage over time. And that gives you some time to like sustain back up. And if you get the kill, then it's GG's. I really try to split push a lot, and you can also take away jungle camps, but be careful that you don't screw over your jungle too much. Preferably you want to take away the enemy jungle camps. I just took the blue buff here so you could get level 15 and then almost got that level 16 power spike. That's also going to be huge. But you should be able to carry as soon as you get the shield bow and the infinity edge, because that's the big spike. Even tanks will not be able to deal with you early on, because as I said, you have a lot of mixed damage. And then you also have that execute on your E, so unless they're really fed, then they simply do not have the goal to like itemize against you, because they need armor as well as magic resistance to like be able to properly deal with you. And this is what Yone can do, and look at that healing. That's the distance. Death Stance as well as Triumph. This is why he can be so obnoxious to play against when you give him this lead. And of course, this is also what makes him so fun to play. He has really high outplay potential, similar to champions like the Yasuo. So if you like playing Yasuo, then you definitely like playing Yone. His problem though is CC. If people are playing around you, if they chain CC you, then it's going to be really difficult to like pilot this champion in team fights. Because even if you have these defensive items, they're really gonna help in a 1 versus 1. But like if 3 or 4 people are hitting you at once in a team fight, you're just gonna die instantly. So that's the difficult part, where you really have to be patient and wait for people to use their main mobility spells and CC spells, and then you go in. Because you have to think like an assassin when you play Yone. But this was how to play him. I hope this was helpful. As always, thank you so much for watching, and see you all in the next one.